I'm not talented. Alright, well that was a short video. See you guys next time. Okay, so I was just joking there, but what I said before was true in that I don't consider myself talented, but let me explain myself. I don't think of talent as a thing that exists. Maybe I need to explain that too. So, talent is often commonly described or defined as having skill or expertise in some sort of area without any prior knowledge of it. A natural talent, if you were. That's the sort of talent that I'm talking about. And I don't really believe that that exists. And I think most people who have spent a long time developing a skill or expertise would agree with me in that they also don't believe that natural born talent is something that exists. But I think it's important to talk about because there's so many people who are non-artists who I see tweeting things or talking about things like, oh, you're so talented, I'll never be as good as you, I could never draw, etc., etc. And I think that's really kind of a poisonous way of thinking. It poisons the mind a little bit. And not only that, but it's slightly, not intentionally, but it's a little disrespectful to the artist. Any artist that you talk to who you think is really impressive or inspiring or anything like that has developed their craft over years and years of hard work, persistence, and active learning. But we don't usually get to see any of that. That's all behind the scenes because, you know, what we see on social media is just the final product, but that is far, far less than 1% of the journey that it took to reach that spot. And it's not just true for art, that's true for sports, that's true for any skill, programming, writing. It doesn't even need to be creative. You could be like a fantastic mechanic. And I'm not gonna say I could never be a great mechanic, but I don't prioritize that skill. There's only so much time we have, and we have to prioritize things differently. But it's not that I'm incapable of doing it because I lack the talent to do it. It's because I haven't spent any time developing that skill. You know, singing is something that I would actually love to learn and be good at, but I just don't have the time compared to other hobbies and other skills that I would prefer to develop further. There's just no time for me to learn singing. But I would never say I could never be a great singer. I just haven't put the time in. And that's really sort of the key point here, is that we all only have so much time in the world. But what we invest time and energy into is what we get out of it. I've spent 20 plus years drawing, and I've gotten to this point. I'm not the perfect artist, not even close to it, but I think I've improved a little bit, you know. I think I can say with a reasonable amount of confidence that I have some skill in the craft, even compared to like a couple years ago. But the other thing about this idea of talent and it not existing is that usually when people say somebody has a natural talent or an aptitude for something, what's really happening, I think, behind the scenes is that they are kind of using sort of transferred skills from other related skills and applying those to this new one. For example, I picked up painting Warhammer miniatures recently during quarantine, and there's a lot of transferable skills there. I have not painted a miniature before this year since like middle school, probably. I haven't touched it, and back then I was terrible. Check out the video where I would go through all my old miniatures. That'll be up in the corner. But that's okay, because I have all of these transferable skills from continuing to draw and do visual art and paint digitally and things like that. There are so many sort of things that carry over from that realm into miniature painting. That's an obvious one. But say I wanted to learn how to drive a motorcycle, which I've never done before. I have some transferable skills there too, because I know how to ride a bike, I know how to drive a car. They're not the same thing, but I bet if I went out and bought a motorcycle tomorrow, I would like be able to drive it home probably. Maybe take a couple practice laps first to, get the hang of it. But there are these things, I have all this background knowledge and sort of associated fields which helps carry me home to the finish line and develop that skill at a much faster pace than I would have had I been lacking those. So I think what happens when people see someone who they exclaim is naturally talented or has a natural aptitude for something, there's a lot of these background transferences of skills that are not immediately obvious, but play a massive role in how that person tackles developing or acquiring a new skill or technique. Another example for me is programming. I learned programming a few years ago through an intensive sort of 6 months, 3 to 6 months. I don't even remember now. program. But I was able to learn that because I had a lot of transferable skills in things that you might not expect. I'm not particularly talented in, math or arithmetic or anything like that. But I know how to write and I know how to think critically. I love solving puzzles and I love learning languages. And these are all skills where I can sort of pick and choose little pieces of that would aid me in developing the aptitude for programming that you wouldn't think necessarily apply to something like programming, but massively improved my ability to learn the techniques, to apply them, and to develop this skill. So, why does this matter? So what? Talent doesn't exist. What's the point? The point is that by thinking that people have talent, we're fooling ourselves into thinking a skill, a technique, any sort of personal learning or development becomes impossible because we don't share that talent. And that is, I think, a super negative, damaging way to look at life. Because sure, you may not have put in the time, but you could have, and maybe in, a different world, a different universe, something like that. There is a world in which that was possible had you put in the time, had you learned other transferable skills, things like that. Like, the aptitude to learn is always present in human creatures, in human beings, in us all. We are all able to learn things, but none of us are born already knowing things. The clearest example I have of sort of realizing the non-existence of talent was when I picked up breakdancing in university, which I went on to do for almost a decade. And in my early days of dancing, I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I'm a terrible dancer. I'm bad at music. But I kept on practicing. I kept with it, and I made friends in the group. And, a couple of years later, I was able to actually dance decently. I could hold a beat. I could bring some musicality to my movements. And that's when I sort of had a eureka moment that nobody's born a good dancer. It's an impossibility. There's no baby that's coming out of the womb doing some head spins. You know what I mean? That's not a skill that you can have innately. You can't even walk when you're born. How are you gonna dance? I didn't realize it as much with art when I was younger because I'd been doing it for so long, and I had been receiving praise for it for a very long time. And I think that is sort of where we get this idea of talent. It's like early praise pushes you towards a direction to keep developing that skill, so you keep putting more work into it, and then you do it for so long that it seems like second nature and a natural born ability, even though it actually isn't. But when I learned dancing at the, I started doing that when I was 18 years old. And I realized that like I can absolutely learn this, as could anybody who wanted to put in the time. But I also realized that there's no such thing as natural talent when it comes to this. It's all just hard work. That's what it is. That's what everything is. And I kind of had this eureka moment that I went back through my life thinking about all of the things that I had been told I was good at, and realizing how much work and how much effort had gone into each and every one of those, and how much learning was an important part of the process and self-improvement was an important part of the process. So that's why I don't think talent exists, and I don't think we should talk about talent, because I think it's sort of promoting a self-defeating mentality of, oh, I could never do something, which is really, it's such a, it almost makes me shudder to say that. It's so against everything that I stand for as someone who's super into self-improvement and continued learning and things like that. That self-defeating mentality it's poisonous. It's absolutely poisonous. So, talent's a bad word. What do you say instead? You can compliment, say you see an artist, right? How do you compliment that artist? You just say, wow, that piece is gorgeous. You must have been drawing for a long time. Like, how long have you been drawing? Ask questions about their history. I'm sure they'd be happy to talk about it. Or if you don't want to ask questions, maybe you don't want to start a conversation, but you can just say, wow, you must have been working really hard at drawing for a while. Or I can see the effort that you put into this. It's incredible. It's paying off magnificently. And I can guarantee you that 10 out of 10 artists who hear words like that will appreciate them a million times more than hearing that they're talented. I don't want to hear that I'm talented, like, ever. I don't want anyone to tell me that. I don't like hearing it. And I think a lot of artists are the same, even if they might not realize it. So instead, acknowledge the hard work that all these people are putting into their crafts. Acknowledge the blood, sweat, and tears that they've spent developing their skills. And acknowledge just all of the effort that is behind the scenes that you're not seeing, but you have to recognize is there and it exists. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a rant, it's a little bit preachy, but I see it all the time. This is something I honestly see all the time via social media, via just talking to friends, coworkers, things like that. And I really think it needs to stop. But thank you guys for watching if you kept up with it this far. You know, I've been painting this lovely portrait of Heejin and Olivia from Luna. This is actually this is an older piece. I did this last year, but I never made a video of it for some reason. I'm not sure why. Anyway, if you've come with me this far, let me know how you feel in the comments. Do you think talent's a thing? Or are you correct and think that it doesn't exist? Let me know in the comments. You know, give me a follow if you want to see some more videos, and I will be back with a new one. Peace.